Hi everyone! Hey, it's me, it's Pauline Hatch here, back again for our Thursday night catch up where we're going to be going through a really cool little topic tonight around clean eating. And if you're wondering why I have my little earplugs in, my earphones tonight, it's because I have a 3-year-old who's in bed but not asleep. So I don't really know if she is going to actually be staying in bed or not. So I figure that this way I can take my phone and run if she comes out of her room and hopefully it'll block out some of the noise. So if you jump on, give me a wave. Hi everybody who's jumping on. This is the first time I've done this on my phone, so I'm really excited to see how this goes. I usually do it on my Mac. So anytime you throw on a comment, it helps me to see if I'm getting all the comments and how to actually go through them. Hi guys. Hi Carly and Kelly, Hannah, Danielle, and Sam. Hi guys. All right, so I'll get straight into it. Hi Jake. There is a lot of what I do in helping people with their health involves changing out the way that we eat, coming back to the wisdom of real food. And what I come across a lot is a bit of a misunderstanding around the way, clean eating. Okay, so I get a lot of, oh, okay, but it's really boring, and oh, it's okay, it's no fun really, is it? You miss out on all the fun stuff, and it's too hard to change it, and man, it's just so expensive. I got that one just the other day. So I really want to go through some of those and talk a little around each one of those, but also just go through what clean eating actually is. Like, what does it even look like? What can you eat when you're eating clean? Hi, Melinda. And someone else just popped on before. I know that was Jake. So another way of saying clean eating is whole food diet. And I deliberately didn't use the term whole food diet because I know that that's even less known than clean eating. Clean eating is kind of obvious what it is. But yeah, whole food diet is another way of saying clean eating. So they're the same thing and I'll use them interchangeably. You'll probably find through what I'm going to share. Hi, Kathy, and hi, Jules. So, for those who don't know, I didn't know what whole food eating and clean eating was until a few years ago too. So I'm really happy to share this because I know that I didn't know this and I know that some other people might not know this. And once I actually came into it, and I had to learn a lot about it myself, but once I understood it, I was it's clicked and I get it now. And I really love to share around it because there's actually a lot of freedom in eating a whole food diet, in eating in a way that's very clean. So I first started discovering clean eating and whole food eating when about 2 years ago 2 years ago. I had been sick for 2 years before that, just terrible exhaustion. My adrenals weren't working properly. I was stressed to the max. My whole body just kind of shut down. I was in chronic, terrible pain. That really affected me in terms of my anxiety. I was heading down the path of depression. It was just awful. And then I started to change my diet and my lifestyle because I recognized that the reason these things had happened is because I was not eating in a way that was giving my body what it needed to function properly. So I started to slowly change the way that I ate. And now I realize that I am actually a whole food clean eater for the most part. Okay, no one's perfect. I don't want to pretend that I'm always awesome, but I can tell the difference when I'm not awesome and when I am awesome. And I definitely want to try always to be awesome with my eating because it feels so much better. So that's kind of how I started on this path of, I've been involved in health and health research around health, and I love learning about food and how food operates in our body. So, coming to this point of actually really revolutionizing my diet was just like the final thing for me to understand the importance of food. So what does a whole food diet look like? Okay, so a lot of people, I think, have the impression that whole food diets mean that you're going to be eating celery sticks and you're going to be munching on massive great big tomatoes like they're apples, okay? And just that it's just boring. That it literally is whole foods that you're just sitting there eating. And that's, a dinner is like a plate of spinach or something like that. So there's a lot of different food groups. We all know the food groups. There's fruits and vegetables, there's meats, there's dairy and eggs, there's grains and nuts, there's processed foods and refined foods. I'd probably put them into the same thing. So which one of those do you think shouldn't be in our diet? which one do you think is making us all a little bit sick and a little bit fat? And which one is making us have high cholesterol and high blood pressure and suppressing our immune systems and making our kids hyper? What's causing adult onset diabetes to become a children's problem? What foods are completely devoid of nutrition and actually act as anti-nutrients that pull nutrition from our tissues? Well, that would be the processed and refined foods category. And that's the category that doesn't belong in a whole foods diet. So when we're talking about whole foods, we're not talking about limiting it down to eating celery. We're talking about, it actually encompasses almost everything except the foods that we're paying for that are making us really, really sick. And the processed packaged foods, typically speaking, I mean, we do buy some packaged foods, but I always check the ingredients. I make sure there's the least amount of ingredients possible on there, and I really make sure that there's nothing like natural colors and flavors can actually contain a whole lot of chemical stuff. Like aspartame is considered a natural flavor. Okay, and we probably should not be consuming aspartame. Hi everybody else who's just jumped on. Oh, who have we got here? Steve, Kurt, Elaine. Oh, hi Kirsty, and hi, is it Corey or Corey? Hi guys. So yeah, processed foods are full of terrible salts and sugars. Refined foods, so when you refine a food, it means that you take something that was great in its original form and you turn it into garbage. So it's like taking a bunch of flowers and ripping off all of the beautiful petals and the leaves, and then like just handing this bunch of stalks to your wife, and then your wife's like, well, what do I do with that? Like I can't even use that. And actually she'd be going, well, now my house looks kind of ugly and I've got a bin full of stalks I can't get rid of. Like that's what refined food is. It's got all of the goodness taken out of it. It's been refined and processed and refined and processed until what's left is a non-food. So that's why we don't want to be eating those sorts of things in a whole food, clean eating diet, because they're actually not even a food. I actually saw a really interesting TED talk a few months ago where a guy was talking about, I think he visited a facility where they were making a packaged food. I can't remember what it was. It was either chips or it was something like muffins. It might have been muffins. And he was saying he actually tasted some of it mid-process and it tasted like metal in his mouth. And they said, yeah, that's because we haven't put in the salt and the sugar yet. So they create something that tastes disgusting and then they put loads and loads of salt and sugar in it, not the good salt, this is the bad salt, to make it taste like something. And all of that salt and sugar is so bad, not to mention the trans fats that, you know, end up being like our beer bellies and our muffin tops and things like that. So yeah, there's just absolutely nothing really good about processed foods. Some of them are okay. Like if you buy some organic corn chips, that's probably okay because most of them are just corn and a little bit of salt or something like that. So you can have a bit of common sense around it. Obviously a packet of Doritos or something is not going to be classified anywhere in the okay clean eating department. But the other thing, so the cool thing about that is that when you look at all of those different food groups and you identify that processed foods are the one you shouldn't be eating and everything else is on the table, to some degree, there's a few caveats I'll put in there, but when everything else is on the table, that means you have an absolutely massive abundance of a rainbow of fruits and vegetables that you can create incredible, amazing dishes with. You can still make pretty much every dish that you've ever enjoyed in your life, you can still create in a way that doesn't involve foods that are making your body unwell and all those artificial things and modified things. It's limitless, and I've discovered that for myself, absolutely. You can have certain types of grains and nuts until they are coming out of your ears. You can have whole meats. You've got to be a little careful with processed meats. Some are okay and some are not, but in general, chicken and beef and all that kind of thing, as long as they're clean. We buy ones that aren't, don't have all the hormones and the antibiotics and stuff in them. And there are some butchers that will do that. So just look for those butchers and buy those ones. But you can have some types of yogurts, some types of milks. You can have eggs. You can cook anything you like. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be raw. Like it's not raw vegan. It's just cook whatever you want. You know, eat it always. Kathy said grass fed. Yeah. Anyone who lives on the Gold Coast, the butcher that I go to is in the Kitchens at Robina Town Centre. They're called Pure Meats. Their stuff is amazing. They actually have sliced ham there and stuff that's really good. I believe it's nitrate free, but I'm not sure. But yeah, their stuff is really, really great. they don't, there's no antibiotics and stuff like that. So that's, and if anyone else has got suggestions, just pop it in the comments for people, because I know people are always looking for recommendations. So yeah, so the main thing that a whole food diet doesn't consist of is the stuff that makes you sick and fat. So it's going back to what our bodies need to function correctly. We've gone way off course over the last 50, 60 years from how we should be eating to how the modern processing of food tells us we should be eating. So all we're doing is returning back to what our bodies need. And our bodies absolutely need, they must have the nutrients and the antioxidants and the fiber from fruits and vegetables in order to function correctly. So if you bought a top of the range car, like if you bought a car that was like $50,000 and you put salt water into it, what's going to happen? Like it's going to start system failure after system failure, and then it's going to stop. And it's exactly what happens to our body. If we get our body, and instead of feeding it all of the good fuel that it needs, we just feed it rubbish after rubbish after rubbish, the systems will stop working and we will start to get sick. And that's what's been happening over these last few decades as our food has changed so much. I think we eat something like 4 times more wheat now than we did 50 years ago. I'm going to say something about wheat in a minute. Yeah, and so yeah, when we're not eating the right way, the symptoms are actually so much more vast than you would imagine. Even things like, fatigue is a huge one, but you lose that mental focus and clarity. You even lose motivation. Like, we've become a slower, slightly lazier people because we just don't have the energy anymore because we're not feeding our body the right way. Oh, hi everybody. I'm sorry I've missed everybody who's just jumped on. Philip and Nina and Vicky and Mary. Hi guys. So yeah, so eating and chronic diseases and allergies and skin conditions, your skin is such a window to what's going on in your body, and people who get rashes and different things like that, that's generally a sign that something's going on the inside, generally. So something to think about there. So eating a whole food diet is really easy. I've done it. I did it when I was so exhausted and sick and tired that I could barely get out of bed, and I still managed to do it. So I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that everybody can make these changes. And I've had people say, oh, it's not for me. Well, it is for you. It's for everybody. Like, everybody needs to start thinking about this. If you want to live long enough to see your kids have grandkids and maybe even have great grandkids, like, we need to start thinking about our longevity, and we need to start thinking about how we're going to teach our kids to be safe and healthy, and so that they can live the longest that they can and see their families grow up. It's our responsibility to do that. So, okay, I've gone on a complete tangent. I always do this. I managed to change our food eating, sort of the way that we were eating, even with an incredibly fussy eater, even with a slightly reticent husband sometimes. And yeah, I've done it when I was completely exhausted, but it was what turned my health around, was changing the way that I ate, getting in more whole food supplements and things like that to really up how many fruits and vegetables I was eating in a day. And within a month, I saw my health change. And that's how fast our bodies work. Our bodies are amazing machines. You start feeding it the right stuff and it will start fixing things that are a problem right now for you. So I do follow a whole food program. I'm totally happy to share what it is and how it works. It's what I used to transition over to a whole food and clean eating diet for our family. So, and honestly, the most delicious meals we've ever had. Okay, so the next thing I want to go through is some of the questions that I said at the start, which, so number one is, it's no fun, clean eating is boring. It's no fun. I don't want to do it because I'll miss out on all the good stuff. That is the opposite of what it actually is. That's a little bit of social brainwashing around, that things like salty chips and chocolate cakes are fun and everything else is boring. You can make the most incredible, flavorful desserts out of all of these different amazing fruits and herbs and spices and things like that. You can create incredible desserts, like mind-blowing kind of desserts. And you can make amazing chocolate snacks and desserts that are just the best thing you've ever eaten. And the awesome thing about it is that you can eat it without feeling guilty, because it is clean. It is something that your body can use as fuel and energy. It can use it to get processes going. So you can eat it and not feel guilty. And that's even more fun, because you don't eat half a block of chocolate and feel sick and gross and go, oh, I shouldn't have eaten it. Oh, blah, blah. Eat chocolate. It's fine. Just eat the right kind of chocolate. So that's why I was saying at the very beginning that there's so much freedom in eating this way, because you don't have to carry the guilt of eating naughty cheat foods, because there are no naughty cheat foods. Everything's on the table because everything is good for you. Okay, does it cost more? Yes, initially it might cost you more to get some of the unusual ingredients that you need, but once you've got those and you've started stocking your pantry that way, it doesn't cost much more. Like it doesn't cost me any more than it used to cost me, because if you plan it right, and then you'll use up what you have bought, you get to the end of the week and you've used it all up and you haven't, spent lots of money. And remember, you're saving money on buying packaged foods. And I don't make everything from scratch. I find different ways of doing things, but yeah, I don't find it costs me much more than what I used to spend, really. I'm just better at using what's in my fridge. And that's the cool thing about these kind of meals too, because you can take what's left over and you can throw it together in a cool stir fry with all these different herbs and whatever, and it's amazing and delicious, and you've just used up all the leftover stuff in your fridge. So again, gives you a lot more freedom to be creative, because you're not relying on pastas and something like that to be the base of every dish. You're really letting the fruits and vegetables shine in what you're creating in your kitchen and feeding your kids. And the other thing is too, that when you eat lots of clean foods like these fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and meats and things like that, when you're eating whole foods, they're actually more satiating. So you will eat less overall because your body is happy and fine and full. Whereas lots of packaged processed foods with refined sugars in them, they'll actually make you hungrier, and they make you really thirsty and they make you crave more. And it's that quick release energy that your body uses and then crashes and you need to eat again. Whereas when you eat really clean foods, you'll have more energy for a longer time. You won't feel as hungry, so you'll actually eat less, which equals less food that you're buying. And that's because it has, all those whole foods have the right amounts of fats and fiber and good carbs and proteins and things like that. So when you get all of that together and your body gets all of that at one time, then it can use it over a longer period of time and you'll eat less. Is it boring? No way. Total taste explosions. Some of the best meals I've made in my life I've made since I started eating this way. I've discovered herbs and how incredible herbs are for just making everything taste a million times better. Okay. And you feel better after eating it too. I think that you don't feel that heaviness and awfulness. You kind of just feel really light and happy and, like I said before, satiated. That's such a great word for it. You just feel satisfied and happy, and you don't feel like you need to go and have something sugary after you eat, because your body's just happy with what you've just given it. Is it hard? It takes some time to modify your diet. If you, like I have been eating what we would call, I guess, a standard Australian diet for decades, it's hard to undo the way that we've been taught to eat. It's hard not to miss certain things that your body might be slightly addicted to. But once you transition out of those, and you can just do it slowly, you don't have to go like balls out, chuck out everything in your pantry and start again. Like, you can do it really slowly. So yeah, initially, of course, yeah, it's a little bit hard, but you do get used to it, and you find that as your taste buds change, and that's a huge element of it too, you've got to retrain your taste buds to enjoy these new flavors, because these are natural, true flavors, not flavors that have been created by factories that are synthetic and things like that. So you've actually got to retrain your taste buds. A couple of people just jumped on. Cindy, hi Cindy, and Vanessa, and I think I said Mary, hi girls. What was I saying? So you'll need to change some habits, some taste buds, some thinking around things like that. But so quickly you start to see and feel the results that it doesn't feel hard after not too long. You get used to it so quickly, because you start to see and feel those benefits. And then it's like, oh, okay, I can keep doing this because I want to keep feeling this amazing energy and lightness, and I'm sleeping better. And lots and lots of people say they sleep better once they start eating better. So huge amount of symptoms that come from eating that way that we shouldn't be eating. And even eating out is not hard anymore, because there's so many, we're so aware now of how we need to be eating that there's so many options, and all of it is delicious. So it's not like you miss out by choosing to eat well anymore. You just don't. We went out for lunch today, my husband and I, actually, sneaky lunch, and yeah, it was lovely. Okay, so why do we see so many families shunning dairy and wheat? Okay, so I've written this question down because I didn't want to miss this one. The reason that a lot of us, our family doesn't eat dairy, and we eat very, very little wheat. My two boys sometimes have organic whole grain bread, but for the most part we don't eat any dairy, and we don't We eat very little wheat. I don't eat any wheat. My daughter doesn't eat any wheat. I don't know what my husband does sometimes. So the reason for that is because even though milk is technically a whole food, it's only raw milk that is still a whole food. So raw milk from healthy, grass-fed, clean cows who are in a natural, great environment is really nutritious. It's awesome for you. But we don't have I was gonna say dairy and milk at the same time, and I said dilk. We don't have milk like that anymore in our supermarkets. The milk that we have is so highly processed. It goes through pasteurization, it goes through homogenization, and the high temperature that it goes through to kill off all the bacteria and all that sort of stuff, it changes the structure of the milk, and it actually makes it impossible for our body to understand what it is. It's no longer what it used to be in its original form, which means that when you drink it, your body can't recognize it. It doesn't know what it is, and it causes an inflammatory response in your body. Inflammation is one of the dominoes that leads towards chronic illnesses and cancers. So inflammation creates free radicals, and that creates oxidative stress, and that's when you start going down that path of tumors and things like that. So we want to limit the amount of inflammation going on in our body. So it's just very unfortunate that, again, this is something where the Industrial Revolution and modern technology has decided that we're going to start changing the foods that were staple foods for our diet for such a long time and turn them into something that our body can't recognize. So that's a shame, but that is just the way that is. So we choose not to have dairy. Our middle child, he snored for the first 5 years of his life, and as soon as we took him off dairy, 2 weeks later, he stopped snoring and hasn't started since. So yeah, and our daughter is also off dairy because she has gut issues, and as soon as we took her off wheat and dairy, all of her symptoms disappeared, things that we've been trying to fix for a year. So, okay, that leads me to, actually, no, I'll say this first. So we still have goat's cheese, and we still have, we have coconut yogurt as an alternative, but I think you can probably still get some types of Greek yogurt are okay. And we use milk alternatives, so we use things like soy milk and almond milk. You can use rice milk, oat milk, things like that. Again, so many options out there now, and you don't have to miss out on anything anymore because you can find an alternative that your body can recognize and it's not causing that inflammation. All right, so that I mentioned wheat before. Wheat is another food that the whole kernel of the wheat is actually really nutritious. But what happened was back in the Industrial Revolution, they found a way of being able to separate the wheat kernel into different parts, and the part that they used to start baking was just the bit that's basically all carbs. And they did that so that they could make white, fluffy bread and make it for the masses. So what they did in the first place was it changed how we should be eating the whole kernel for our body to be able to process it. But they took away all those other bits, and they just gave us that one bit, and our body couldn't process that one bit. Hannah said try Greek coconut milk. If you know, where do you get that, Hannah? Put it in the comments. I've never seen Greek coconut milk. We just buy the natural one, just from Woolies or one of the health food stores. That sounds amazing. Great for like an Indian dish or something like that. So yeah, so we're already eating the carbs. So they've already changed that so that it's really hard for our body to process. So the other thing that happened was that in the 60s, scientists decided to have a little fiddle with wheat, and they created a new kind of wheat that kind of went all over the world. And that new kind of wheat is basically a whole new class of food. It's not food that our body actually recognizes, and it has 5 different proteins in it that your body's never seen before, and it doesn't know what to do with it. It's like eating a tire and saying, here, go do something with this tire. And your body just doesn't know what to do with it because it doesn't recognize what that thing is. And that's what wheat is. So that's why we have so many issues with gluten, because our body does not understand how to use that product anymore. What it comes down to is that nobody's actually able to tolerate wheat. I'm the first one to make jokes about tolerating wheat, but yeah, no one can actually tolerate wheat. It's just how severe is your intolerance to wheat and what symptoms are you having from it. So for my daughter, it was a rash around her face that started when she was about 1, which would have been around 6 months after she started eating solids, and she had that rash for a year. And it wasn't until I took her off wheat and dairy that it disappeared. So her intolerance towards gluten is really high, clearly. But my other kids seem to be okay on wheat, but I know that they're still not able to tolerate it completely because no one can, like nobody's body recognizes these proteins that are now in modern wheat. So that's just something to be aware of. That's why we just kind of go, unfortunately, it's just one of those things. It's not that everyone's being crazy. It's not that everyone's going, oh, I'm intolerant because I want to be special. It's just the way that, again, things have changed and wheat has changed, and that's the end result is that we're getting lots of illnesses. And again, you know, when you eat something like wheat that has those proteins in it our body doesn't know, then you're getting more inflammation again, and you're asking your body to do something with something it doesn't understand. So yeah, it's like I said, it's like eating a tire. Your body can't use it. So don't eat tires. And, you know, if you really want to go towards great health, just eliminate wheat. It's not as hard as it sounds. I have been doing it for years and I don't find it to be a problem at all. I don't miss it at all. Yes, sourdough I've heard is okay. It probably depends on what wheat. But yeah, unfortunately the wheat that they created in the 60s is kind of global now. It's just gone, spread everywhere, and you kind of can't get away from it. They jumped the gun. So wheat has changed over thousands of years. It's changed a few times, but always in a way that our bodies kept up with it. But they kind of just jumped ahead, these scientists back in the 60s, and said, okay, let's try a new wheat that's hardier and whatever and faster growing so that we can deal with how much more wheat everybody's eating in this new diet. And so they created this new wheat, and now the result of that is that it's not good for us anymore. And yes, spelt. I give the boys spelt. I still don't give my daughter spelt because even though it's a different kind of gluten, it still has gluten in it. And I just, in my mind, I go, I'm not willing to make her a test subject around spelt. So you just got to make up your mind about that. I mean, gluten's in everything. Like gluten's in heaps of stuff. Gluten's in corn. But yeah, because wheat has been modified in such a way, it's that kind of gluten that's in wheat is not good. But yeah, spelt is a little bit better. Okay, so I think I'm pretty done. I mentioned before I do buy some packaged foods. I just always go for something that is the least amount of ingredients, doesn't have flavors and colors and things like that. You just want absolutely minimally processed, because that's what a whole food and clean eating diet is. It's just eating minimally processed. So foods that are just in their natural form, that haven't been interfered with, and create amazing dishes out of it, you know, like have fun, go nuts. There's so many amazing recipes out there. We've just forgotten how to eat well. So yeah, like I said, I've got tons of recipes. I've got the program that I'm happy to share. That's got hundreds of recipes and completely changed the way that I eat as well. So yeah, I think the best way to look at changing your diet to eating a little more healthy is just not to think about what you're missing out on, but actually to think about a massive variety of foods you just unlocked. That's probably a better way to think of it, because the fact is that the foods that you're buying that are processed and whatever is, I can't remember what it was. So I was reading Frankie's comment and I didn't even, clean food, leave the word healthy out of it. Yeah, clean, yeah, absolutely. That's right, actually, and that's a good point, because lots of things will say they're healthy and they're just not. And that's the problem with packaged foods as well. So just go for as natural as possible in its whole form. Yeah, because you don't want to be spending money on foods that are just making you sick anyway. Like, choose foods that are more delicious and making you really well and have incredible energy and feel amazing. Yeah, so all right, I think that's it. I just really wanted to shed some light on what a whole food diet and what clean eating is, so that we can start getting rid of those misconceptions that it's boring and hard and I can't possibly do it and I can't change the way that I eat and I'll miss out on all the good stuff. Like, that's just... It's the absolute opposite of that. There is so much freedom in eating well. You don't miss out on anything at all. I definitely don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I don't look at chocolate now and go, oh, I'm just dying to have that. It doesn't even taste that good to me anymore, because you do have to just change the taste buds a little bit. I've actually got a couple of blogs. I meant to mention this at the start. I completely forgot. I've got a couple of blogs that are relevant to this. So I'm going to pop them in the comments that you can read through. Just one's all about how to go whole food without breaking the bank, basically. So different ways to save money. And the other one is about meal planning. Meal planning is a great way to make sure, I think I might have linked this a couple of weeks ago as well, but it's a really great way to make sure that you are really maximizing what you're buying every week, so that you're not spending money on frivolous things, but you're using everything that you buy and still feeding your family awesomely. So I'll pop those in the comments, and if you've got questions or anything, chuck them in the comments or send me a PM, and I'm happy to share any info that you want at all. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for jumping on. Lovely to see you all here. My kids are up. Okay, I gotta go. Bye.